keep in mind, don't try this at home. I am a professional Russian. Hello my friends, it's FPS Russia again, and I've got something pretty cool today. See how this goes.
If you wanted to die, you could have.
Cameraman had a little bit of an accident.
I was looking at more like 25 years of prison.
Absolutely ridiculous.
August 8th, 2017. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms swiftly and without much reason raided the property of a local Franklin County man, seizing over 50 guns. The search came fresh off the heels of a mysterious package received by a resident of Carnesville, Georgia, and one of the biggest YouTubers of the early to mid-2010s, Kyle Lamar Myers. A gun enthusiast at heart, the man had become synonymous with firing off high-powered machine guns, blowing up vehicles, refrigerators, hitting explosive targets out of helicopters, and bringing tanks to drive-thrus.
Let me get a number 9 and 4 large cokes.
Number 9 and what else?
4 large cokes.
2673.
Sounds good.
But thanks to a number of federal raids, weapon confiscations, and a potential 25 years in jail, along with the sudden and unexplained assassination of his longtime partner, FPS Russia is no more. The man who built a career and multi-million-dollar business on guns, ammo, and explosives is now legally unable to own any of the things I just mentioned. But why? That's what I want to get into today, as we take a journey back in time to discover the real history of one of YouTube's most popular and federally hated pioneers. This is the story of FPS Russia. Born on May 9th, 1980, Georgia native Kyle Myers grew up in an upper-middle-class environment near a farmhouse owned by his father in the city of Livonia. As a kid, Kyle was always enthused by pellet guns and showed a clear knack for shooting at an early age, quickly learning the importance of gun safety from his family.
Every time I would point it at someone that I shouldn't point it at, which happened, or I shot something I shouldn't have shot, which happened, Dad would do the same thing. He would destroy the fucking pellet rifle right there in front of me. Pick it up by the barrel and smash it on the ground like a fucking gorilla, and it would just explode and be completely ruined. I learned my lesson about gun safety that way. If I fucked up, if I did something stupid, the gun was gone. And it's not like we're getting a new one next week or next month. It's next birthday or next Christmas. It's next time, like, it's pellet rifle shopping time. Like, we're not getting a new one.
It wasn't until Kyle became a teenager that he obtained his first real job working at a car dealership. This is where he came into contact with a peculiar Russian coworker, displaying the heavy accent Kyle would be quick to adopt and later use to brand his channel, fooling millions of people into thinking he was Russian himself. But contrary to popular belief at one point, Kyle grew up in Georgia, the state, not the country. After experimenting with a few smaller accounts as a teenager, Kyle officially burst onto the early scene of YouTube on April 19th, 2010, with the channel FPS Russia hosted by the fictional character Dmitry Popotov, a gun fanatic from Moscow who had just moved to America and was committed to showing off the Russian lifestyle to an audience of what would become 6.9 million subscribers.
And the only way to make something more Russian is with stolichная vodka. Oh yes, my friends, now it is breakfast of champions.
It was all a clever shtick. Kyle didn't even disclose his real identity until years later in a Q&A that isn't even up on his main channel.
First questions first, Nick Mantilla says, are you really Russian? No, of course not. No. There's this whole branch of people who think that FPS Russia is like a Russian Spetsnaz commando. The main difference between Dmitry and Kyle is the accents, and it always has been. That's the thing.
And according to him, the wide variety of his subscriber base still has no clue of his true persona.
Not everyone knew FPS Russia wasn't the guy. Not everyone knew that. That's the truth.
Still don't know. If I go back and upload on that channel, 80% of them don't know. They have no idea because they watch YouTube videos occasionally. Some of them were only subscribed to me. They're not part of the YouTube community or the mythos of it, or like they don't know any other YouTubers. They don't know what VidCon is. A lot of them are like 45 and 50-year-old dudes on Facebook. They just like to watch me blow shit up.
He was playing a character, but the thing was, that didn't matter. Dmitry was a likable, compelling figure regardless of his faux Russian background, and that's what kept people watching. As many YouTubers tend to draw a devoted core audience through their openness, Kyle managed to pull record numbers by doing the opposite. He was one of the only creators at the time who managed to grow so big using this formula, getting to collab with other huge names and expand the FPS Russia brand beyond his imagination.
Well, this is a f***ing good internet video, isn't it, bitch? How do you reload this again? Yeah. Can I pull the trigger?
At first, Kyle would post short, usually 1-minute videos as Dmitry playing with shotguns, Uzis, Tommy guns, shooting a 50 cal with one hand, and blowing up microwaves with remote-controlled cars.
I'm just fucking with you.
Just guys being dudes. But it wouldn't be long until Kyle turned up the notch, exhibiting an Austria assault rifle in front of 10 million people in February of 2011. This would become his most popular video of the time. His format normally consisted of showcasing the weapon's specs and explaining its utilization before testing out what the thing could actually do.
That gives you a much shorter barrel, even shorter than the AK, and gives you much better maneuverability. This one has a reflex sight. You can come around and show them. See if you can see it down the side.
Not only were the guns cool, he was a pretty good shot too.
Target's moving, and two, I won't be facing the target. I'm going to use this mirror to shoot it over my shoulder.
But as time went on and Kyle continued to produce shooting style content, he knew he needed to keep changing the formula in order to stay afloat. He understood the critical need to up the stakes with each new video, which is exactly what he did, daring to embark on bold, crazier stunts with exotic machine guns and explosives that were otherwise extremely difficult for the general public to access.
Hello, my friend. It's FPS Russia. Today we're going to have some fun.
So how did Kyle manage to get his hands on these highly dangerous and sometimes explicitly illegal firearms? Well, that's all thanks to a man named Keith Ratliff, friend of Kyle and co-owner of FPS Industries, a custom firearm fabrication and testing company. Being Kyle's primary weapon distributor, Keith was a crucial member of the FPS production team, as his special licensing gave him the power to fuel all the insanity you saw unfold on the channel. Without his connections and credentials, it'd be a lot harder for Kyle to get away with videos like 12-gauge Dragon's Breath, Glock 17 explosive ammo, or Flamethrower Massacre.
A little bit.
I mean, really, it's impossible for anyone to deny the sheer entertainment value of these videos. They were insane, but then again, Kyle, or Dmitry, was also kind of an insane guy.
Can I interrupt? Was it a car door or refrigerator door that hurt Scott? I have my...
It was a refrigerator door, but That's not how the shoot started.
When Kyle's buddies showed up a little less than sober once to a video shoot, they ended up wasting the only good target they had and jeopardized the footage altogether, meaning the FPS Russia team needed to get a little creative. And when a distorted piece of shrapnel impaled the shin of Kyle's cameraman, he let Scott choose between one of the two solutions.
Hey Scott, here's the deal. I'll give you $500 cash right fucking now, and we'll sew your leg up. Or we can go to the ER. Whatever it costs, I'll pay for. Take me to the fucking hospital! Take me to the fucking hospital! I'm like, all right, all right.
Basically, Kyle wanted to see what all he could accomplish without, dying. Even though he understood the gravity of each situation and knew an incredible amount about the equipment he was dealing with, he had come shockingly close to death multiple times, and yet was never deterred from pushing the envelope even further for the sake of getting a 10 million view video.
I saw a gif of you almost getting killed by a door.
Maybe a little shrapnel going. Maybe a lot of shrapnel.
Do you remember that? Was that recently?
I feel like that would have really hurt you.
It would have killed me, but like when I'm out there, I'm like, what would FPS Russia do? He wouldn't give a fuck. So it's like I don't give a fuck. And if it were me and there weren't cameras, oh god, I would have shit my pants after. I'd been like, what was that? But because it was FPS Russia doing it, FPS Russia don't care.
From a career standpoint, Kyle had it all figured out, contrasting his signature nonchalant persona with the natural flair of his weapon reviews spelled quick success for his gun channel during the first fundamental years of the platform. Obtaining impressive partnerships with Machinima and Call of Duty, he even launched a successful Kickstarter for his own iOS app by 2012, rocketing up to the 9th biggest YouTube channel in the world, ranking above PewDiePie of all people. It seemed FPS Russia was on track for enormous success through the rest of the 2010s, but unfortunately, circumstances in Kyle's life were about to take a majorly devastating turn.
Wait, you got out of prison 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Oh, for what?
Wait. Forgot the sponsor. This video wouldn't be able to exist without the wonderful people at Raycon. Co-founded by Ray J in 2017, Raycon is committed to bringing you quality earbuds that sound just as good as any other premium audio brands, but at half the price. I've been using mine to listen in on my favorite country artists while I edit this video. Luckily, they've been able to help by sounding and feeling great. Thanks to the variety of gel tips included in every order, they're bound to stay in your ears while you're at the gym, riding your bike, driving down Rodeo, just whatever daily activities you may be up to. Complete with a 32-hour battery life and with a 45-day happiness guarantee, you'll have the chance to try them out for yourself and still get your money back in case they're not for you. I'd say that's a pretty good deal, especially if you want a way to help out the channel. Click the link in the description box below or go to buyraycon.com/jobry to get 50% off your Raycon purchase today. Massive thanks again to the wonderful Ray J himself for helping out with this one. Ratliff was just as infatuated with guns as his buddy Kyle. He loved shooting them, building them, and selling them. He went so far as to store bullets in his car cup holder. Needless to say, the man was no stranger to the industry, leaving his wife and son behind in Kentucky to start his own gun business in Carnesville, Georgia, where he was able to join forces with Kyle Myers.
I met Keith Ratliff. He started helping us because he had tons of contacts in the firearm industry, had a lot of know-how that we just didn't have.
His federal firearms license and overall status in the business world is what led the two together, eventually even moving into an apartment connected to the FPS industry's warehouse. They had great plans in store that unfortunately never came to fruition following the tragedy on January 4th, 2013, the day Keith was mysteriously assassinated in cold blood while working out of the warehouse.
So my officers and investigators would respond to the scene, and They observed what they believe was a white male had a gunshot wound, and he was inside his office. And at this time, it is still an ongoing case.
The employee who found Keith's body the morning of his death wasted no time contacting local authorities, who rushed to the scene as quickly as possible. As reported by the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, there were no signs of forced entry at the business, and surveillance equipment, along with some firearms, had been taken. There didn't appear to be a struggle of any kind, and based on the scene, Ratliff died while he was working. Ratliff may have been killed by an individual he trusted, as outlined in the police statement. Considering there were no signs of him fighting back as observed in the autopsy, it's safe to assume Keith was taken off guard, a scenario which may lend itself to the perpetrator being a former associate of his. As stated by Kyle 2 years later,
I loved Keith. Keith was my buddy. Keith had been my friend for a couple of years. We traveled the country together. So it's hard for me to say, oh yeah, this person or that person, you know. Everybody's got enemies, I suppose, people who don't care for the way they do things, you know. He had a rocky personal life with women. You know, I know he'd had some trouble in business in the past, but nothing that would bring something like this, you know, at least we wouldn't think so, no idea.
Since 2013, the GBI and Franklin County Sheriff's Office alike have had minimal luck in finding a lead for Keith's murder. The trial has gone cold and the case remains open to this day, meaning Keith Ratliff's family has yet to find justice in the face of these gravely unfortunate circumstances. But because Keith was also tied to one of the most prevalent online gun channels of the time, the lack of closure has naturally led to countless fans airing their own suspected theories on who's to blame. However, with little evidence comes pretty unfounded claims, as some have been quick to point the finger at the face of the channel himself, Kyle.
There's actually an entire Facebook group that I found from Reddit that thinks Kyle was the one who did it. It's pretty nuts and full of people from Kyle's hometown that are suspicious of him.
But what would someone on the FPS team, or Kyle himself no less, gain from losing their manager and key weapon supplier? I understand it's impossible to stop these theories from spreading, but I think it's a little disgusting for anyone to imply his friend had anything to do with it based on absolutely no concrete evidence. When looking for a culprit, especially with little to no physical evidence on hand, you have to consider the motive behind such an act. And to me, Kyle would have zero motive. I never knew Keith personally. None of us did. So it's hard to imagine who, if anyone in his life, might have had it out for him. As one theory goes, it could have been driven by his track record of infidelity, as others have insisted Obama himself might have had something to do with it.
The founder of FPS Russia, the biggest gun show in the world, not just on YouTube, about 100 million viewers on average a month, just on YouTube, biggest gun show in the world, was tied up at his offices, he's a gun manufacturer, dead. And it's in the back of the local Georgia papers, executed, tied up in a chair, expertly.
Man, come on. As if the federal government would really waste time concerning themselves with a random YouTube channel. But as YouTuber Gamer from Mars has since pointed out, a business deal gone horribly wrong is also on the table. Unbeknownst to the public, in 2013, Keith was actually the head of a talent network that arranged financial deals for other gun channels. And according to another creator close to Keith, some of these YouTubers were only being paid a fraction of what they were promised.
Around a month or two before his death, he and I talked on the phone and he tried to woo and woe me into joining his network. I got the used car salesman BS vibe from him and never joined. Quite a few gun channels did join it, and talking to some of them, they told me that their earnings were much lower than before they joined the network. Some of these guys were doing YouTube full time, so their videos were their only source of income. To me, that seemed like a pretty strong motive. I have no idea who would kill someone over that though, but it seemed like a logical possibility.
But it's important to remember this is all just hearsay, as the official investigation unfortunately has yet to bring back anything substantial relating to the murder. In reality, trying to decipher who did it based on shoestring evidence and a handful of vague testimonies is ultimately a pointless venture. Still, someone out there knows the truth, and I just hope one of these days it becomes clear so those in Keith's life no longer have to wonder about the untimely death of their loved one. All we know is this crime marked a new chapter in the FPS Russia history book, the beginning to a series of misfortunes that would only continue throughout the next few years, one of which being just a few months later. The ATF conducted their first raid of Kyle's residence on March 26, 2013. According to a spokesperson from the Bureau, the claim is that he was using explosives and getting paid for it via YouTube. The explosive in question was tannerite, a legal substance that blows up only when shot with a rifle. This is what Kyle used to send trucks sky high on his dad's farm, which was also raided that day. The feds argued that individuals or companies must obtain a federal explosives manufacturing license if they intend to engage in the business of manufacturing explosives for sale or distribution or for their own business use.
First time they raided my house, you know, and that was a situation like ATF was in the living room and they had this big list of like my registered stuff and they're like, we're not coming up with a couple machine guns here, and they're looking at me like I've done something wrong, and I'm like, well, they're in my bedroom. They're like, we searched the bedroom quite well, sir. And I'm like, mind if I take a look? I'm like, help yourself. I know exactly where the machine gun is, and I just like reach between two pairs of blue jeans on a rack and go, ka-ka! and I've got an M4, and I'm just like, this the one?
Kyle wasn't just using explosives for fun anymore. He was doing it on YouTube and getting paid massive amounts of money in the meantime, making himself a business no matter how you wanted to cut it. I don't doubt being the biggest gun channel in the world came with its perks, but it certainly wasn't always easy, especially with local authorities eyeing your every move. Since these two incidents in 2013, video production on Kyle's main channel began to slow over the next few years. Sure, the content was just as wild as ever, and they were still pulling impressive views, but things would never quite be the same without Keith, unfortunately. And with the added pressure of the state and federal government breathing down his neck, combined with YouTube's changing atmosphere, Kyle knew deep down there wouldn't be much of a future left for FPS Russia. Uploading his last video on April 16th of 2016, Kyle bid a quiet goodbye to the channel without ever officially announcing it.
If you got the flamethrower, you can definitely protect your rights and melt cars if you're into it. But hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you share the video, give it a like down below, and as always, have a nice day.
The channel has remained inactive as of September 2021, but the timing ended up being pretty ideal, because a little over a year later, the trajectory of his life would wildly change once again.
Open up! Police!
As mentioned at the beginning of the video, feds raided Kyle's property for a second time towards the end of 2017. Only the cops weren't looking for explosives this time. Instead, it was a bag of weed that caused the YouTuber to face up to 25 years in the slammer. But I don't want to get ahead of myself, so I'll let Kyle do the talking.
But the feds, because of the types of firearms that I owned, were able to search my house regardless, just because I had been found to possess any marijuana whatsoever.
That 2 months is what that gets you?
In federal prison, yes.
I guess it's safe to say Kyle had made a few enemies over his time as FPS Russia, one of which being the local government, who may as well have been looking for an excuse to raid his home again 4 years after the first siege. Finally catching him on the receiving end of a package containing about 25 grams of butane hash oil, or weed for any of you lamos out there. As minor as this offense may have seemed, the Department of Justice was hell-bent on prosecuting harshly on the grounds of Kyle owning firearms along with the illicit drug. Luckily, Kyle and his team were still able to win the court case against the state on account of the initial search warrant being absolute bullshit. As cited by the cops, the reason they searched his house in the first place was because
they wrote a warrant that said they were able to search my home due to the fact that I was wearing shorts.
I haven't heard this little bit.
Now I had some cargo shorts on, and they said because I was wearing shorts, that meant that I was heading straight home with the half ounce of marijuana, and therefore they had the right to search my home. Whereas if I'd been wearing slacks, I guess, then I was going about my day into the world.
Maybe if Kyle were dressed in a fucking tuxedo, he would have been able to avoid the charge altogether.
Don't go home.
Possessions is still a state crime in Georgia as well. So how did you get tried for on a federal level for it?
Because we beat the state case because they wrote a bad warrant. A seed of marijuana or a hundredth of a gram of marijuana would give them the ability to search my home. So the state lost their case, and so the feds picked it up.
The warrant made no sense and obviously served as an excuse to get into his house. But with the state authorities out of the picture, prosecutors on the federal level were then able to swoop in and prolong the case, basically threatening Kyle with obscenely trumped up charges, some of which were completely unfounded.
The stress and like unknown that stretched out for 2 years was maybe worse than the 2 months in prison.
I was looking at more like 25 years of prison.
Prosecutors were determined to put Kyle behind bars one way or another, forcing him to plead guilty for the lesser charge of possession of marijuana, which he inevitably did, as the alternative meant prison time for God knows how long.
Like one of the charges was owning a firearm with a destroyed serial number. Now what happened was he bought a brand new firearm. He bought it from a gun store legally. Everything is on the up and up. He took that brand new firearm and shipped it to a professional firearm coating person to give it like, you know, cool camo or another color or something like that. And then it turns out that person had got paint in the serial number, and now they're accusing Kyle of
facing a serial number, which is a 10-year mandatory minimum federally. Even the guns had nothing to do with marijuana, you know. Those type of laws are meant to punish drug dealers who are carrying a pistol while they deal drugs, not for people who like have a shotgun in their closet way back at home and they smoke some marijuana at a concert. So they were threatening me with like roughly 25 or 30 years or something like that if I didn't plead guilty to some pretty nonsensical charges.
Instead, Kyle spent a total of 2 months in federal prison for possession and attempt to distribute marijuana. Pretty insane considering the distribution part was just sharing it with his girlfriend.
I pled guilty to intent to distribute as well because they said that my girlfriend had smoked marijuana at my house one time and that I had distributed marijuana to her in that manner.
Regardless, Kyle made some allies, completed his 2 months, paid a $7,500 fee, and went right back to his podcast, Painkiller Already, to tell about living through the whole experience.
8 cents an hour, that is crazy. Like, that's just slavery.
Nuts. Yeah.
It's about $20 a month.
Oh my God!
How do they justify the fact that they're paying you 8 cents an hour? Like, why even pay you at that point?
Yeah, I'd rather have nothing, more dignity.
Well, whenever they abolish slavery, what the part they always read the first sentence. They never read the second sentence of that amendment. The second part is, except in the case of punishment. So it's literal slavery.
To this day, the FPS Russia YouTube channel remains untouched, yet gains an average of 1 million views every month, and has even seen steady subgrowth over the years of inactivity. His videos are still being viewed by fans old and new, so why hasn't he come back? Well, there's probably a couple reasons for that. For one, Kyle is a felon, meaning he can no longer buy or own any more guns whatsoever unless the law changes or he relocates to another country. And being a gun channel unable to purchase a firearm is kind of a slight roadblock, I'd say.
What do they do with the guns? They just hold on to them, put them in a big vault somewhere?
Probably destroy them.
Oh, that's a shame.
What would you, 200K? Like, you get more than that in guns.
Yeah, closer to 400.
They took $400,000 worth of guns? Holy cow.
I had half an ounce of marijuana. I was a real danger to society.
But even if he were able to get around it, the licensing itself is too much of a headache to obtain. To continue blowing up vehicles on his dad's property and shooting at posters of Justin Bieber from a helicopter requires a ton of credentials most gun channels wouldn't even need. It's possible Kyle could still be planning a grandiose return in the form of an alternate genre. In fact, his Twitch has even seen some activity in late 2021, with his return to streaming reaching an impressive viewership, especially considering the 6-year hiatus. The FPS Russia name may have experienced unprecedented hardships in recent years, leading to the eventual decay of the channel, but that doesn't mean the brand is gone forever. In fact, this may just be the start of a new beginning. But even if I'm being too optimistic here, at least we'll always get to hear him weigh in on the most pressing matters of the day, thanks to his podcast.
I stole a kid's hearing aid one time.
Bro, that is so fucking funny. How did you do that?
Like
actually, he couldn't hear you sneaking up on him.
Keep on, keep running.